Chapter 9 of Glass Houses. You see, her uncle wanted to be a dentist, but they made him study art. Then they made the mistake of telling him it was for his own good. I mean, it wasn't a mistake to tell him, I don't suppose, but it damaged her, I think. She has a soft mind, and people shouldn't put things like that in it. They were right in their intent, though. He wouldn't have made a very good dentist at all. It would have been a disaster. He had palsied hands. When you're an artist, that sort of thing gets in the way, of course, but you can live with it. Use broad strokes. My God, if you want to, you can paint with a broom. It's done all the time. Do you see what I mean? Is that a bruise on your face, Marilyn? Well, it turned out that the real reason he wanted to be a dentist was that he wanted to hurt people. You see what comes of that unenlightened poking around in other people's lives. If they had known it was that taboo he wanted to overcome, they could simply have made him a psychiatrist. As it was, it cost $16,000 worth of analysis in order to even find out where they had made their mistake. Oddly enough, he turned out to be a rather good artist in the end, but his predicament had made such an impression on her, don't you see? On who? On Carol. Carol? Carol Peabody. Oh, yes, Mrs. Peabody. They sat side by side at a counter-like table, facing the large, smooth grill on which their waiter was cooking their meal. He was a young man with a downy mustache, and he blushed deeply as he executed the formal dance-like movements tradition required him to do with knives and spatulas, tossing them, swinging them broadly, confronting the food with them as if it were an ancient opponent, and ritually conquering it, then sliding it expertly around the grill from hotter places to warm places until it was cooked to perfection, and serving it in bite-sized portions onto their waiting plates. He's a darling boy. He's having an affair with Maria Cohen, or at least he's paying calls to her villa while she salivates over him. Who? Cabato, the waiter. Her fork was full of sprouts, and she waved it gently, pointing a thumb at the waiter, almost touching him as he leaned over the counter, serving small portions of eggplant. Don't blush, Marilyn. He'll know we're talking about him. He doesn't know 20 words of English, but they're not stupid, you know. He's very aware of what goes on around him. The waiter blushed even more deeply and smiled, a shy, radiant smile, then sobered his expression to execute the kabuki-like leap and cry required by the fillet, chopping at it savagely in terrifying but precise enthusiasm. Watching him, a little thrill ran down Marilyn's spine, absorbing itself into a soft mass of nerves in her pelvis. Olivia would have been charmed by the thought of someone chopping a hole through Marilyn's hotel door with an axe. As a matter of fact, she could, with no trouble at all, imagine Olivia herself doing that. She could imagine Olivia getting caught doing that with an air gun loaded with darts leaning beside her, and she could imagine Olivia talking her way out of it. Cool, funny, competent. She could even imagine Olivia enlisting the help of whoever caught her in the project. Olivia always seemed so right, no matter what she was doing. Well, I was trying to create this really vivid ambiance. I wanted to put somebody off balance. I thought it might make her give something away. So, to make a long story short, her family background has prepared her for this very repressive role she's been playing, and it was only 3 months ago that she discovered in transactional analysis the damage it had done to her. To who? To Carol. You see, she plays parent to her parent. She has no child. Don't be so naive, Marilyn. I mean, she has no child, no interior child. She has repressed her expression of child. I know, that's a perfectly revolting way to look at it. I can hardly stand to listen to her talk. For one thing, it's so time consuming. She repeats half of what you say back at you so you can hear what you said. Don't look so superior. How do you know what you would have been doing if you were married to him? That is a bruise. I guess I slipped on the sidewalk in the rain. Marilyn, dear, I know you won't mind my saying this because you know I love you, but you've really got to take yourself in hand. A little social drink now and then is not the least bit harmful to the reputation, and I would go so far as to say that in some circumstances it might be beneficial, but this is beginning to take on the overtones of a binge. You haven't had anything to drink this yet this morning, have you? No, of course not. Excellent. Drinking in the morning is a very bad sign. What a lovely suit, dear. Where did you get it? She felt the material of Marilyn's rumpled pink suit between her thumb and her middle finger, and then vigorously dipped her napkin in water to rub away a spot. It's, I, charming on you, but this falling down in the rain. By the way, speaking of binges, where did you go Friday night after you left my house? I guess we went to a couple bars, and then we went walking in the park. Which time? What? You went walking in the park after which time you left the house? Oh, God. I see. Well, I thought you were pretty far gone when you walked in. I'm awfully sorry if I made a scene, Olivia. Oh, no, love. Nobody was there to make a scene with. Except Buzz, of course, and he fell sound asleep in the big easy chair by the fire, and you were unable to wake him. Oh, God. Though you did prevail in the end, of course. Olivia's eyes were flat, remembering what still eluded Marilyn. This is the first time I ever got drunk like that, said Marilyn. It wasn't. She'd gotten drunk the night Jason told her he was married, but not so drunk, not like that. Next time, Marilyn, do it a little more slowly so you can savor it. I must have been awful. Don't blubber and don't apologize. You were actually rather entertaining. I guess there was some disagreement about that. Carol, for instance, was simply livid, but she has no sense of humor. Carol? Besides, she quit smoking 10 days ago. That tends to cut down on your flexibility. Carol Peabody? Which leaves her with such a miser's pinch of flexibility, you've got to round it off to none. Even her analyst doesn't mess with Carol when she quit smoking. You mean that scene at the taxi? She was mad because I followed them out to the taxi. My dear, I don't know the details of Carol's resentments. The floodwaters of her rage appear to be running unchecked, picking up debris from the far corners of her past. I don't remember a taxi in the inventory of crimes, but I would imagine that if you feel guilty about it, Carol has made note of it and has placed it on her list, possibly under another heading. She tends to be more precise than you. Do you remember offering her a drink from a bottle of Jack Daniels? Oh, God. Green label, no less. And there was something about a house plant. Can you remember anything about a house plant? No? Maybe it'll come to you. You've got to tell me the instant it does, because it sounds intriguing. I'm always intrigued by the things people like Carol slop over. For example, Jace. I've always been intrigued by Jace because Carol slops over him. I did remember a plant. I do remember a big green plant sitting on a windowsill or a bench by the window. Marvelous. Nothing more. Just that. It's just sitting there. Close your eyes, dear, and blank your mind. It will come. I don't want to know. And Buzz. She was mad about your friend Buzz. Her eyes gleamed. Are you or are you not, by the way? Not what? He announced that you two were going to be married. Oh, no. Just before he fell asleep. No, no, we're not going to get married. That was just a joke. Olivia leaned forward confidentially. Just between you and me, my dear, that might just be the simplest thing. Marry poor Buzz. You have a very settling effect on him. It might just be the best thing all the way around, if you know what I mean. But Olivia, that little episode was supposed. Unfortunate, yes, but lesser men than Buzz have come back after, so to speak, Pearl Harbors. People will soon forget all about it, you'll see, and any sinister overtones that are left will simply add to his aura of mystery. Defeat adds depth to the character. I really don't think I want to marry Buzz, Olivia. Much safer, my dear. A married woman is much safer in this world. Do you honestly think you would be in the kind of situation you are now if you were married? No, dear. A husband would take care of you and keep you out of mischief. But don't let me influence you. It's much better if that sort of decision is made willingly. But all this is neither here nor there. I had hoped to have simply a pleasant chat with you about just that sort of fun thing, getting married and having adventures. However, as I imagine you've guessed, this luncheon has been turned into something much more like a negotiating table. You are aware of the developing situation, aren't you, dear? Good. I hasten to assure you that you personally are very dear to me, and I fully intend, yes, fully, to have that little chatty get together one of these days after all this blows over, so to speak. Cabato had begun to fuss with something on a cart. Marilyn assumed it was dessert, but she couldn't see precisely what it was. However, his ferocity towards it and the sharp knives he was juggling made her increasingly nervous. He tossed the knives high in the air like a baton twirler, and now and then executed a little stab into the cart. She suddenly noticed that they were alone in that section of the restaurant. Could that have been planned? Could Cabato have been part of this conference? Could it be that his knives were to play a role in the negotiating? I'm nothing more than an emissary in this matter, dear. It's not a role I particularly relish, and I'm sure that my manner is deceptively soft. So I want to suggest at the outset that you consider the weightiness of this issue. It's not an issue that should be taken lightly. Oh no, I would never, never, she said, never take anything like this lightly, Olivia. I'm so happy to hear that, dear. You can't imagine how happy it makes me to hear a young girl like you talk like that. You are a rare child indeed. I have a feeling this interview is going to be a great deal easier than I had feared. I know everything must look very bad to you, Olivia, said Marilyn, trying to sound reassuring. But once you know the whole story... Oh, spare me the whole story. The last thing I want to hear is the whole story. The less I know about the whole story, the happier I'm going to be. Let us confine ourselves to essentials, dear. Now, the first essential is that there be an immediate reconsideration. Do you understand what I mean? I don't really think I'm the one to talk to about that. You don't think your voice would be heard in the matter? Well, you see, Olivia, I'm just a secretary. My dear, the secretary of today might easily be the dowager queen of tomorrow. Don't sell yourself short. Never sell yourself short. Well, what I mean is I don't think anybody would listen to me. But you can carry a message, can't you? Of course you can. You see, in a delicate matter like this, sometimes it's not possible for the parties involved to talk directly to one another. Sometimes it is a great deal better if there is a buffer, so to speak, to soften and interpret their positions. That is why I agreed to my part in this little drama. Perhaps you're right that ultimately there will have to be a confrontation, but this is a beginning. Think of yourself as a diplomat, dear. But you see, Olivia, I don't think you understand how unimportant I am. The fact that she had had the transcript on her person had obviously misled Olivia. But who was the other, quote, party, end quote, that stood behind Olivia as the U.S. government stood behind Maryland? Was it England? Cabato was beginning to make her very nervous. His energetic display of knives could only be seen as a threat. What would happen to her if she made a mistake? But she couldn't very well commit the U.S. government to something as serious as the, quote, reconsideration Olivia was referring to. The implication would be that the project would be aborted. That was going a little far for a secretary to promise, no matter what her potential future. Marilyn, Olivia's tone had developed a hard edge. Her little eyes glinted green. I think perhaps you don't fully understand the situation. I'm here to ask for your complete capitulation. I can't do it, Olivia. Complete capitulation, nothing less. You don't understand. I think it's you who doesn't understand, dear. As Olivia leaned towards her, she leaned back until she was leaning very close to Cabato's cart, trapped between the two of them. Then there was a flash of flame, and in her panic, Marilyn fell off her chair. Cabato was only flaming the dessert, of course, but his point had been well taken. Oh, Missy, he said as he helped her back up. You look as if you had a rough day, dear. Now I'm going to take the chance of getting too personal, and I'm going to tell you what I think. I think you're beginning to experience what I call the everything going wrong syndrome. Have you had your biorhythm done, dear? I would be very suspicious of biorhythm in a case like this. You see, if it was up to me, Olivia, there would be no problem. I would simply abort. Olivia's eyes widened. Now we're getting down to it, she said. I've never really been all that enthusiastic. I mean, I want to be loyal and all, but I was afraid it wouldn't work. You are a noble and considerate girl. I mean, I would be happy to carry your message. And I mean, I'll say I agree if that would make you any happier. But that's really all I can do, Olivia. That's all I have the power to do. What more could anyone ask? Said Olivia. You had me worried there for a minute, but I believe this conversation has been profitable after all. After coffee, they stood at the big plate windows waiting for the glass elevator. The view below them was spread at their feet like a great carpet. Marilyn tried not to look. It made her feel like dropping to her knees, like she was at the edge of a precipice, like she needed to crouch down to keep herself from being blown over that edge. Olivia, of course, loved places like this. She found the glass elevator, quote, exhilarating and rode it every chance she got. Marilyn dreaded it and would gladly have stood for an hour, even on an ordinary day, on this blue rug next to the chasm of the city below, if it meant those elevator doors wouldn't open and she wouldn't have to step inside that infinitely more terrifying place. It was 2 in the afternoon. They were the only people in the lobby. Olivia peered down, her face against the plate glass, to get a glimpse of the elevator. It's coming, she said, but it wasn't until the doors opened that she dropped her bombshell. By the way, she said, what were you doing in the J&J last night? The J&J of all places. So it was Olivia pounding on her door, after all, shooting at her with darts, trying to scare her. And what did she have in mind right now? Did she have some gruesome plan for once those elevator doors had closed and they were alone together in that monstrous place? Marilyn was to carry a message back to the government. She couldn't very well do that if she was dead. It was only paranoia that made her fear Olivia's intentions. On the other hand, Olivia had chosen this perilous moment to as good as confess to her part in the terror of last night. Surely she had a reason for her timing. Step on in, Marilyn. It won't kill you. I can't. What's the matter, dear? Come on in. If she got in that elevator with Olivia, maybe she would never come out again alive. Maybe the conversation at lunch hadn't been satisfactorily resolved after all. Maybe she'd been lured there to give away some small piece of information, and maybe unknowingly she had done that and now had to be killed to keep her from reporting it when she was debriefed. Or maybe all this was a prelude to soften her up for some sort of torture in which she would be forced to confess some vital secret of peace. On the one hand, none of this sounded like a logical reason not to get in the elevator. It was like the most childish dream paranoia to really think somebody as sophisticated as Olivia would hang her by the heels from a glass elevator floor in order to get her to tell something, or even that she would choose such an unconfidential place to try to get Marilyn to talk. The real reason Marilyn couldn't get in the elevator was more like the reason she couldn't pick up a lizard. She knew it wouldn't hurt her, but suddenly she just couldn't. I can't. What's the matter, dear? Didn't the lunch agree with you? No, it didn't. You go ahead. I'm down, Olivia. I've got to go to the ladies' room. Don't be silly. I'll come with you. You do look green. Are you still hungover, love? I guess so. No, you wait here. I've got to go alone. Don't come, Olivia. Nonsense. She felt a little sick by the time she got there, making it a legitimate trip after all. Afterwards, she sat in the booth on the toilet, procrastinating. Although she knew it wouldn't do any good, she was going to have to come out sooner or later, and Olivia would be there. There must have been something in that lunch you are allergic to, my love, said Olivia. Also, I noticed you were going a little heavy on the butter. I really think you should consider giving up butter. When she came out at last, she was struck with her image in the mirror. She hadn't looked at herself in a mirror for ages. She'd been too rushed even to put her makeup on this morning. Was that really her? She looked changed. She did indeed look like somebody who'd been through a rough night. She washed her face and laid out her makeup on the counter. But inside her compact was a folded piece of paper. The paper was a note composed of letters cut from a slick magazine and pasted onto a piece of white bond paper. Quote, I'm going to kill you, you bitch. I hope you rot in hell. Jesus. She folded it up again rapidly and jammed it back in her purse. Olivia appeared to be absorbed in one of her own eyebrows. She had nice presence. If it was an attempt to scare her further, it had accomplished its mission. But it wouldn't work. She was on her guard, and she wouldn't give anything away to Olivia. Pull yourself together. She wants to panic you. Don't panic. She put her makeup on painstakingly. Good. You're not going to cry. You do look a little peaked, dear, but that's only to be expected of someone in your condition. Maybe you should consider taking little naps in the afternoons. Back in the lobby, she was confronted again with the glass elevator. I can't do it, Olivia. I just can't go down in that thing. You're going to have to go on without me. But Marilyn, how do you plan to get back down? I don't know. Come now, you will find that once you're in it, your stomach will be fine. Just don't look down, that's all. Besides, you can't stay here, love. I just can't write it right now. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone up here. I'll just wait with you. And with that, Olivia plopped herself down in a chair, placed herself in a rather elegant waiting pose, and arranged a sympathetic expression on her face. Marilyn sat down too, but she knew from the start she was defeated. She would never be able to outwait Olivia. Olivia was a great deal better at this sort of thing than she was. Okay, Olivia, she said at last, I think I'm ready now. Marvelous, said Olivia. I'm proud of you, love. On the way up, she had simply stared at the buttons so she wouldn't have to know what was out there. She had been able to imagine that there was a wall behind her, but that was because the ground floor elevator entrance was encased, so it was as if it were enclosed. However, from up here, one could see the view, and in fact had to see the view as one stepped into the little keyhole-shaped cubicle. The glass was smudged, and the indoor-outdoor carpet looked cheap and worn already, even though the building was relatively new, and the elevator didn't go down really smoothly but rocked slightly. It was, after all, only connected to the building at one side. Passing down in silence, they could hear voices from a floor below, and as they passed the floor, the voices sounded like they were just on the other side of a door. It was people laughing, people waiting for the glass elevator to take them up to the bar or to their friends, people having fun. I really think abortion might be the best solution, said Olivia finally. I know you don't feel free to make that decision alone, but even if you can't get the other party to go along with it, I think you should consider acting unilaterally. If you know what I mean. Women have acted alone since the beginning of time, my dear, when they've had the chance. Why do you think civilization has lasted as long as it has? So, that was it. Olivia was afraid she couldn't stop the project through channels, and all this terror, all this threatening, was to try to push Marilyn into sabotaging the detonations from the inside. It was probably possible. It was probably possible for anyone with access to the grotto to sabotage peace. So she had picked what looked like the weakest link, softened her up, so to speak, and was now trying to frighten her into treason. She said nothing. She didn't dare to argue, and she didn't want to try to lie. The decision is yours, my dear, just so long as you understand the lengths the other parties are willing to go to in order to protect their security, if you follow my meaning. I understand, Olivia. The elevator passed through the ceiling into the lobby, and once again they were safe and inside. This was a trip that had used something up inside Marilyn, that wrung something out of her insides and then used it up. When she had stepped into the elevator doors, she was still an ordinary person, but by the time she stepped out, something had happened, something that placed her outside the reach of a particular kind of fear. In the lobby, they were met by Buzz, who hurried up to them. I got your message straight, didn't I, Olivia? He said, didn't you say 2:30? Oh, no, love, how can this have happened? I said 1. Well, that's all right. You'll enjoy lunch, won't he, Marilyn? It was lovely. We'll all have to get together again, and this time we'll write it all down. Why don't you come back up for a drink and keep me company, he said, to help salve my wounds. No time. We have no time, said Olivia. Did I tell you, Marilyn, that there was a message waiting for you at the restaurant when I arrived? It was from Jason. He wanted you to meet him at his apartment. I'll drop you there. Wait a minute, said Buzz. Hey, I've got to talk to Marilyn for a minute. Isn't that sweet of him, dear, said Olivia, but we really haven't a minute. We're late as it is. I brought the necklace, said Buzz, and pulled an enormous, ornate piece of costume jewelry from his pocket. Buzz, I really can't. Here, put it on. Now tell me, don't you think Barney would like that? I'm sure he'd love it, Buzz. You're going back to work tonight, aren't you? Yes, I imagine. What time? Buzz, I really don't know. I've got a conference with Jason now, a very important conference. Look, I know it's important to your mother. I'll try, okay? I'll ask Spitzenhammer about it. He comes in at 5 or so. I promise. Okay, Buzz? Hey, thanks. That's all I wanted to hear. Thanks. Olivia's car was parked at a rakish angle, at least 3 feet from the curb. It was an enormous car, but it had power steering and didn't at all require the energy Olivia put into driving it. She whipped the steering wheel around sharply, and the car responded obediently, like a ship on the open seas. Have you only the one coat then, dear? She said. I would have brought it along if I'd realized you were without one. And your shoes, too. I'd catch pneumonia if I tried to run around the way you do. Do remember to pick some up soon, won't you? I'll park as close as I can. You're not planning to continue to have these business meetings here, are you? I understand about today, of course. There's poor Carol to consider, though, and the sooner we achieve some regularity, the better. Remember, dear, our lives have direction, whether we like it or not. What we want to have is conscious direction, dear. Conscious direction. The cold winter sun shone on her head, and she walked quickly away from Olivia, feeling that she had at last become a different woman.